watching the Blueprint Explosive Exclusive, and I'm Meghna Deka. Well, tonight we are going to delve into the Fidayeen forensic files. Authorities revealed that the suspected bomber had 80 kilograms of firepower. But shockingly, there was no fuse. Why? Did he detonate by mistake? Or did he go out with a big blast? We are going to decode what exactly happened on 10th of November at 6:52 p.m. and what really led to the blast that rocked the capital, very, very close to the iconic Red Fort. Here on your screens, we are going to show you the exact moment of the blast as well. What really happened? You can see that exact moment of the blast, the 4 CCTV cameras, but watch the CCTV camera at the bottom. That's the one which explodes. You can see this blinding light, a blinding explosion there. That's the moment of the blast. That's what we are going to decode for you. What really led to this moment? What was going on through the mind of this diabolical terrorist, especially after his associates, his other friends were being rounded up one by the agencies across India? Was the suspected suicide bomber, Dr. Umar, as his name has now been revealed, was he the man driving this car? Was he intent on entering the Red Fort area, or was he trying to evade capture? What really was on his mind? We are not going to talk about rhetorics. We are going to get you the facts on the ground. What intel sources have revealed to us, what the forensic files really point towards. Let's track the trail of this diabolical terror. How is it that he was traveling around? What we are going to show you is where Dr. Umar is believed to have been gone. Most of this has been pieced together by reporters on the ground with CCTV cameras and timestamps on it. At 7:30 a.m., he was at the Asian Hospital of Faridabad. He was crossing that area. He was caught on the CCTV camera. Around 8:13 a.m., he was at the Badarpur toll booth where he paid a toll. We have a picture of him there as well. At 8:20 a.m., he crossed the Okhla industrial area. We have mapped it for you on a map as well. By 8:20 a.m., he was in Mayur Vihar. This man seems to be all over the place. After that, he went to Connaught Place in the very heart of Delhi. He went all over Delhi. This was at 8:20. He drove to Connaught Place. And after that, we are going to tell you how he moved to the Red Fort area. At 3:19 p.m., he was in the parking of the Red Fort area, where he stayed there for very, very long. Till 6:48, he was inside the parking lot. At 6:48, did he exit the Red Fort parking area? And minutes later, from 6:48 to 6:52, that's when the explosion happened. He was very close to the Red Fort. We're going to show you all of this on a map as well. Very close to the Red Fort and yet not at the Red Fort. But did the terrorists have enough time and space to carry out a bomb blast of the car? For more explosives, after all, would have meant a bigger blast. What really was the anatomy of a blast? We are going to explain to you this about this car that you can see. The bigger question on everyone's mind is, was this blast a panic strike? There was no plan to place it anywhere. Let me take you through what really we are looking at. This is the anatomy of a blast. We are showing you, this is the back seat, the rear view of what an I-20, which allegedly Dr. Umar was driving. If you open the dicky of it, this is where the CNG cylinder goes. We have given this entire graphical representation so that you have a better understanding of how much space we are looking at, because it is now revealed that there was 80 kgs of explosives that Dr. Umar was carrying. But this is the cylinder size, 2 feet by 1 feet. It takes about 2 feet and 1 feet for a CNG cylinder if you put it inside the dicky of where it is placed, the dicky of an I-20. The boot space, overall boot space of this car model, this is a standard boot space of this car model, is 311 liters. But a lot of this entire area is taken up by a CNG cylinder. We'll tell you why that's important in just a bit. But this means that the usable space is only 70 to 90 liters, which means that the boot space is 111, but when you put that bigger cylinder, a CNG cylinder inside it, you barely have 20 to 30% of the space which is available. So if this man was carrying 80 kgs of explosives with him, he'd have to, because he has very little choice, either put it on top of the cylinder or in the back seat. There's very little space otherwise. Why is this important? Let's tell you. Well, the bigger question, as we are telling you, is, was this a blast which was created sheerly out of panic? Was there no plan at the time? Let me take you through the reasons which really signal this. This is it. There were 80 kgs of explosives that this man allegedly had, Dr. Umar. However, the impact is much smaller. Later on, I'll tell you why I'm telling you that the impact is smaller and it could have been bigger. Yes, a lot of people died. Condolences, and our heart really grieves for the loss and those who have been injured. But with 80 kgs of explosives, this blast could have been bigger. But why wasn't it? It implies that the IED, I'm going to go back to the first point, that the IED was actually not packed tightly enough. It needs the IED, any explosive, even if you want to make a Sutli bomb, you need to pack it really tightly. At Diwali, the ones that we are talking about. If it is not tightly packed, then it's not going to explode. It's not going to have the impact. 80 kgs of explosives is massive. But it now implies that the improvised explosive device was not built the right way, that it was not packed the right way either. Second point, there was no crater under the I-20, which was created. This is what the forensic teams, the intel teams have said. What does that imply? It implies that the detonator was below the explosive and not above. It's very important because I was showing you how the dicky looks like. The dicky of a I-20 with a CNG cylinder, there was no detonator in this car. There was no crater under this car. This implies that the detonator was perhaps below the explosives, which is why the impact of the blast was upwards. There was no crater below the car. The blast impact had gone upwards. One of the eyewitnesses even said that he saw the car be thrown up in the air. Interestingly, next point, there was no detonator which was found inside the I-20. Now, no one goes to explode a bomb, but without a detonator. Something else triggered that blast. Was it that CNG cylinder? We don't know. We are waiting for the NIA to finish their probe. But it wasn't a detonator. There was no detonator which was found in this bomb. Next point is that there were no shrapnels. There were no nails which were found in this IED in the area, in the blast site. What does it mean? It means that there was no intent to inflict more damage than what it could have. Remember, in IEDs of this kind, you have nails and shrapnels which are usually packed in shards of iron. And when there is an impact, all of them would be thrown all over, and this would pierce skin. It can even pierce critical organs of our body when it comes with an impact. But in this case, there was no shrapnel, there was no nail which was packed inside this IED. There doesn't seem to be an intent to inflict more damage. The I-20 also did not ram into any other car. This implies that it did not cause additional fatalities, which we have seen in several other car bombings. Usually they go ram into other cars and inflict more damage. That was not the case in the Red Fort attack. So the question is, from pressure cooker bombs to RDX-laden vehicles, the pattern of the terror has now been evolving when it comes to car bombs. But the intent remains the same, which is mass destruction and fear and paranoia. We have traced the deadly footprint of blasts that have shaken cities across India and the chilling similarities which are there in their execution. For example, let's remind you about the Mumbai 2006 train attack. Here, RDX was mixed with ammonium nitrate. We don't know what happened in the Red Fort. We're going to go back to the first pointer. In the Red Fort attack, we do not know if it was RDX, if it was ammonium nitrate. We really don't know. We are waiting for forensic reports to come out. But RDX and ammonium nitrate, this deadly mixture, was used in the Mumbai blast train where 187 people were killed. The next one. This is the Delhi 2005 serial blasts which had happened. It was pressure cooker bombs which were packed with nails and shrapnels to have maximum amount of impact. 17 people were killed in this. In the Red Fort attack, remember, 9 people have been killed. Let's remind you of the Delhi 2008 serial blast as well. Here too, ammonium nitrate was used. It was tied to the integrated circuits with the timer devices and they went off with timers. Here, 20 to 30 people had been killed. Repeatedly, ammonium nitrate is being used. Repeatedly, shrapnels have been packed into it. Repeatedly, nails have been packed into it. Like in Hyderabad 2013, the Dilsukh Nagar blast which had happened, ammonium nitrate, iron nails, nuts and bolts, and 3 to 9 voltage batteries were embedded along with the improvised devices to create a bigger dhamaka, to inflict more and more damage than it would have been. But let's get you the next one. The next one is very interesting because it is the Pulwama 2019 attack, which is something that everyone remembers very fresh in one's memory. It unfortunately led to the death of 40 Jawans. But look at this. This was a case of a vehicle laden. It was a big SUV laden with 2 IEDs which weighed around over 200 kgs. 35 kgs of RDX was used along with it. It went rammed into the security convoy, creating the blast. In this, unfortunately, 40 of our CRPF Jawans were killed. Let's remind you, it's not just about India, of course. In US as well. Remember the Boston Marathon 2013 attack? This killed 3 people. There were 2 pressure cooker bombs with nails, lethal shrapnel, which were packed in because this pattern of radicalization, this pattern of terror is not just novel to India. It's being used by terrorists and the terror networks across the world. In fact, let's also tell you about the major terror attacks which have happened in the past. You can spot the difference between all the terror attacks and the Red Fort attack. All of them have one thing in common, that it was both with vehicles which became the epicenter of these attacks. Let's start with the Pulwama attack. Here you have the Pulwama attack. In this, the explosives used were about 35 kgs of RDX, but when it came to the Red Fort, it was less than that. It was expected, it was more than that. Let's show you the next one. In this case, you had about 40 CRPF personnel who were killed, and in this, 9 were killed. The next one is that of Oklahoma City bombing, which had happened in 1995. The amount of explosives used was about 2,177 kgs. On the other hand, you have the truck which detonated outside a building, creating this huge explosion. So repeatedly we have seen these car bombings which have happened. There are more such things. For example, you have the 2003 Istanbul bombings. In this, there were about 400 kgs of explosives which were used, and 63 people were killed in this. These are just some of the reminders of the kind of deadly car bombings we've seen. Well, the alleged bomber Omar and his aide Muzammil, both of them had also interestingly done a recce of the Red Fort. So let me take you through the facts which reveal just how these terror doctors were planning a larger conspiracy. Well, apparently the 2 of them did a recce of the Red Fort. They carried out multiple recces in January earlier this year, and we have mobile data proof which shows that repeatedly they were going there to Red Fort. Why? To possibly study the entry-exit points, to possibly do a recce of the security arrangements, and also to observe crowd density patterns. But what really makes ammonium nitrate really dangerous is the question. Why can it be a killer? We gave you some of the example. Let's tell you what happens. Now, in a normal condition, ammonium nitrate is actually non-combustible. There you have it. It does not explode per se. However, when it is mixed with fuel oil, then it can explode. In fact, in order to fire it, it can ignite if you light it. When it is exposed to fire, it then ignites. In fact, the component is such that often it is used to make improvised explosive devices. So let me go across to Lieutenant General Raj Shukla, who's joining us, a former army commander as well as an author. Pleasure to have you on the show, Lieutenant General Raj Shukla. General Saab, my first question. We've tried to explain the forensic files and whatever is available to us right now from the intel security is what they are telling Times Now. Piece together this entire Fidayeen attack. What do you make of it? Does it seem to be an attack of panic rather than a planned terror strike like we've seen in the case of Pulwama?
So I think, as you have already brought out from the facts that are now in the public domain, minus the ballistic examination reports, the forensics investigation of the blast dynamics, which will enable us to get to more precise conclusions. From what is available, let me put it this way, that if you zoom in, you may well be right that, this was, shall we say, an error. But if you zoom out, in terms of concept and structure, the Faridabad module was so mammoth. Look at the linkages. They're spreading from Faridabad, Lucknow, where the office of the RSS was recceed, possibly Gujarat, that poison trail, Haryana.
The Resin train.
Yeah, it was a nationwide arc. So that is one. Look at the sophistication. The last time I heard of engineers and doctors doing this kind of stuff was Osama bin Laden, who was an engineer, Al-Zawahiri, who was a medical practitioner, who abandoned a practice in Cairo. So in sophistication, I think it was pretty good. It had some, what shall we say, religious drivers, that cleric now being identified. That lady doctor, Shaheen, some people say she had connections with the Jaish women's wing. Access to the resources. I mean, what is that? 2,900 kgs of ammonium nitrate, detonators, timers, batteries, assault rifles. So all I'm saying is that if you zoom out, I think the police has done very well. I'll give them 9 out of 10 because they have averted a larger tragedy.
In fact, even as we speak, General Saab, we have the visuals of that EcoSport, the red EcoSport, which has been traced. These are the first videos that we have. This is the car which is registered in the name of Dr. Umar, who's believed to be the one who blew himself up in that white I-10 that we are talking about. This is his registered car. This too has been found. And there you have it. General Saab, you're absolutely right. The anatomy of the terrorist now seems to be changing. These are all deadly demons who seem to have degrees in their hand, highly educated.
So if you move away from the anatomy of the I-20 to the anatomy of larger terror, I think it's very significant. And look at how diabolical it could have been. I don't know whether this was a suicide attack at that point or was it out of panic. I mean, that at this moment is conjecture. But the very spot, what does it have? It has the Red Fort, the Seesganj Gurudwara, the Jain Temple, Gauri Shankar Temple, Jama Masjid. And 20 vehicles were mangled in the blast. So it was pretty substantive, even if it was without RDX. It was, the positioning of the detonator was not right. The blast dynamics were not right. It was pretty massive. So I think the key thing here, is what? That these terror cells are monitored over months. I think this activity, if you start from recruitment, identification, training, it would have been in months.
Absolutely.
Now the whole game is that how long do you wait when you are monitoring these activities so that it doesn't get too late? Now that is a timing of judgment, because if you delay it beyond a point and larger incidents occur, so that is a matter of judgment. Now whenever the police did what it did, it would be a matter of judgment. The larger point, I heard General Dhillon making this point, may be valid, that they should not have gone to the press, but maybe they knew that the matter would get leaked, and so they went to the press. But the point is that now you've got a EcoSport car also,
right?
So these segments of the module which they were not aware of, they have gone along. And this gentleman who, I think, when you are alone, you lose contact with anybody. He may have been panicked the whole day, and finally out of desperation he did it. But there are some larger issues. And what is that? I don't think in the last 12 to 14 years we have seen such a blast of such magnitude, sophistication. So this is a decisive shift in the arc of terror.
Absolutely. Also, the fact that there were about 300 kgs of explosives which were in fact discovered. So there was a whole lot more. They were perhaps planning something big, but that has been foiled. In fact, you can see the EcoSport now, which has been taken in custody. Unfortunately, General Shukla, I'm completely out of time. Appreciated much to bring us your perspective onto it. Without a short break, don't go anywhere.